Okay, it's connecting somehow. Good morning. If anybody can see me, good morning. Good morning.
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 Good morning.
It works.
Yep, we're just waiting for a few more people to get connected, and then we'll kick it off.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll be around, ready.
Okay. We've just put some information, some welcome information on the screen. I say we're going to give everybody a couple more minutes to come in, and then we'll get started. And you can see we've got the chat box at the bottom of the screen. So if the chat option, so if anyone has any questions, please use the chat. That will work well for us. And also be lovely if you want to tell us where you're from. If you put in, your name and who you're with or where you are in the country, that would be lovely as well.
Check this. Okay, all right, let's take a check here. Top right hand corner.
All right. Hello from Nashua, New Hampshire. Good stuff. Starting to see people coming in. It's always, I always think, we're so spatially separated at the moment. It's lovely to be able to see where people are coming in. Oxford, Michigan, Orlando, Florida, Reading, Pennsylvania, near where I used to live, Seattle, Washington, Flint, Michigan, Tampa Bay, Florida, Farmville, Virginia, Winona, Minneapolis, or Minnesota, I should say, Flint, Michigan, Paris Gamble in Edmond, Oklahoma. Not heard that one. Miss Chuck from Michigan, East Tennessee, Guatemala. Somebody's in from Guatemala. Norfolk, Virginia, Birmingham, Alabama, Torrance, Gill, Murfreesboro, North Carolina, DC, Kingman, Arizona, Rockville, Maryland, Union City, New Jersey. Nice to meet you too, Nadia. Omaha, Nebraska. Oh, Geneva, Switzerland.
Wow.
Nice. Great skiing, good food, nice people, all good. Indianapolis, Indiana, Longmeadow, Massachusetts, Auburn, Maine. Very cool. Deptford, New Jersey. Wow. We really are from all over. I'm going to kick things off here. My name is Joe Weber, and I'm actually based in Los Angeles, where the weather is perpetually sunny. And you can probably tell from my accent, I didn't originally come from Los Angeles. I'm originally from the United Kingdom. So I am soaking up as much of the sunshine in Los Angeles from all I missed out in my childhood. I am the CEO of STEMconnector, and it truly has been wonderful working with McGraw Hill Higher Education on meeting students where they are paper. And we're so happy to host you today for this virtual event. As I think most of you are aware, two-year colleges fulfill a vital role in the United States by providing an accessible option for those in the population who don't fit into that very specific box that is a four-year college. And I think with technology increasing the rate of change, we can see that box is actually shrinking, and community colleges offer an opportunity to provide a flexible education for, amongst others, low-income families, older students who may need to reskill, students who need to work full-time while they're completing their education, and many others. Now, with this great promise from a two-year college comes a challenge though. And the two-year colleges need to meet all of these different learners where they are, with their different specific needs. And this is again why we were so happy to work with McGraw-Hill Higher Education on this paper, which is featuring two-year colleges and the ALEKS platform. And it became clear in our work that the ALEKS platform in the hands of professors at 2 years colleges can help provide a solution to this challenge. Now, I know not everybody here is familiar with STEMconnector, so I'd like to just take a moment to tell you a little bit about our work. STEMconnector is a leading national network of corporations, post-secondary, non-profit, and K-12 organizations, each one dedicated to growing a diverse and sustainable STEM talent workforce. We are focused on K through career efforts, and we run many cross-sector collaborations where we connect our corporate clients with 2- and 4-year colleges through a series of engaging platforms. In these platforms, we often find we're exposing, sometimes for the first time, the real-world challenges of a company to students and providing students with invaluable real work experience. So with that, I hope today's event, Creating Post-Secondary Pathways and Equitable Opportunities in STEM, featuring ALEKS, will have all of you thinking about the ways in which you are currently working with students, and it will support you in considering the ways that you might do things differently and perhaps even better. So I want to thank you for being here today. I'm excited for what I know will be an engaging and thought-provoking conversation, and I have no doubt that I will learn a lot from this group. And I'm now going to turn over this session to Michelle McTighe, who is the Senior Director of Marketing for ALEKS with McGraw-Hill Higher Education. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joe. We too are just thrilled about this collaboration and opportunity to partner with an organization like STEMconnector. You all are doing such important work, and it's, sometimes when you partner with an organization and you don't have the same goals, it can be difficult, but I can, all the way through, this has been a seamless partnership because we share such similar goals, and you all have been so wonderful to work with, and we're really proud of the resulting paper that was put together. So I'd like to take you through our agenda for today, and as Joe mentioned, this is going to be a bit of a discussion. We're going to do some sharing with all of you, but we're all going to learn together, and your feedback and reaction to the data and insights that we're going to share and the perspective from Lorna and Dr. Moffitt, we'd love to hear your feedback on that. So we've gone through our welcoming remarks. Abbey Myers, the manager of research for STEMconnector, is going to take us through the key findings and insights from this work. And she's going to be joined by Lorna, who is a biochemistry student from Hunter College, and Dr. Eric Moffitt, who's an instructor of biology and chemistry at Pearl River Community College. We'll have a Q&A where you can ask any questions about the information that was presented to you about the ALEKS platform. Lorna and Dr. Moffitt will be part of that, so you're free to ask them questions as well. We'll take a short break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to be broken out into some breakout groups. The value of that is we want to, again, have a discussion. This is a great opportunity not only to learn some new insights, but to also network a bit and share. It's rare. I know I've been working from home. I'm sure many of you have as well. Those networking opportunities in your same department are probably less than they were over a year ago. And so this is a good opportunity for you all to learn from each other, for us to learn from you, and vice versa. So those breakout groups are going to help do that. And then we'll come back together as a group after about 25 minutes of that discussion, and we'll do a little report out, a little sharing of what was discussed in the different groups. We don't want anyone to feel like they missed out on any of the other discussions. So we'll share highlights together. And then we'll do a wrap up and close, and that will be our day. But we do hope that this isn't the end of our discussion. As we were talking among McGraw-Hill and STEMconnector, one of the goals was, how can we continue a community and a discussion even after this event? This is a really important topic to all of us. It's why you've all taken time from your day to join us. So we've also set up a LinkedIn group that we want to invite you to be part of to continue the discussion even after the event. So we'll certainly share more of those details at the end. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Abbey Myers, Head of Research for STEMconnector.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are so excited to have you all. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. So give me just a second. All right. And everybody can see my slides okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Fantastic. So yes, again, hi, hello. My name is Abby. I am the head of research for STEMconnector and the author of this paper on the topic of two-year colleges and equitable opportunities in STEM, featuring, of course, McGraw-Hill's ALEKS program. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to present to you some of the major themes and takeaways from that paper. To help me with that, again, I'm so very excited that we have two of our contributors, as Michelle mentioned, Dr. Eric Moffat and Lorna Duran, who we'll be hearing from in just a bit as well. But to set the stage for them, I want to talk a little bit about why the two-year college is such an important piece of the puzzle when it comes to developing not just additional pathways to STEM careers, but more equitable ones. To do that, first I want to take a moment to explain why this work is so important to us at STEMconnector, to our membership, and then also to the workforce as a whole. And that is, of course, this monumental problem that we all face in the STEM talent crisis. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, STEM jobs are projected to grow at more than twice the rate of non-STEM jobs. Meanwhile, employers large and small are struggling to fill open STEM positions in key jobs such as software developers, computer systems engineers, data analysts, cybersecurity experts, and a lot of these same roles that have just been going unfilled for years and continue to be in high demand across all types of industries. We know that STEM jobs are associated with higher wages, with lower rates of unemployment, and with better insulation from economic shocks, such as those that we've seen during COVID-19. But alarmingly, almost half of STEM degree holders opt to work in non-STEM fields. STEMconnector's mission is to build a more diverse, sustainable, STEM-ready workforce, and this comes in direct response to this crisis. We approach our work rooted in research and evidence. And there are three basic ideas that make up the framework from which we think about and address the STEM talent crisis. The first is that it's not one talent gap, it's actually 5 nuanced gaps. And these gaps were established in STEMconnector's foundational research piece called State of STEM, which it's available on our website, and if you're interested, I encourage everyone here to check it out. But in brief summation, these gaps are the fundamental skills gap, where foundational STEM skills are not being learned and mastered by enough young people. The belief gap, where both students and adults have incorrect beliefs about who belongs and can thrive in STEM. The post-secondary education gap, where most STEM jobs require education and credentials beyond a high school diploma, yet not enough people are earning those credentials. The geographic gap, which recognizes the disconnect between hubs of economic activity and the talent need to fill STEM jobs. And finally, the demographic gap, where we recognize the persistent disproportionate participation in STEM based on demographic factors such as race, gender, and income. The second big idea is that it's not one actor, but an entire ecosystem. Bridging these STEM talent gaps requires efforts to be made at every age and stage, from K-12 education to post-secondary pathways, including the 2-year college experience, to the workforce. And in our experience, where these different systems overlap and interact present some of the greatest opportunities for impact. And finally, it's not one solution, but rather many solution sets at scale. The STEM talent crisis isn't going to be solved by any single program or policy change. It takes many of them over time working together. And the focus of this most recent paper and this event today is, of course, on the 2-year college as a means for having these alternative, accessible, and more equitable pathways for students to earn post-secondary credentials. And we know from the research that this is a really important, yet often overlooked pathway. Contrary to popular belief, there are a wide variety of in-demand STEM careers offering family-sustaining wages that don't require a bachelor's degree. A Brookings study from 2013 found that half of all STEM jobs were available to workers without a four-year degree, and they paid wages that were on average 10% higher than jobs with similar educational requirements outside of STEM. More recently, a 2020 study conducted by FTI Consulting on behalf of AAAS found that 6 out of 10 STEM professionals in the United States did not hold a bachelor's degree or higher, and instead obtained their STEM skills from apprenticeships, associate's degrees, on-the-job training, and technical certifications. This is further corroborated by data from the National Science Foundation. And while they have a more narrow definition of STEM relative to some of the other studies I've mentioned, their data still shows 1 in 5 associate's degrees being awarded in STEM fields. The vast majority of those are in science and engineering technologies, which are used in middle-skilled STEM professions, including aerospace engineers, dental hygienists, radiological technicians, web developers, and geological or petroleum technologists. We also know from the data that racial and ethnic groups that have been historically underrepresented in STEM are overrepresented among STEM associate's degree earners. Sadly, these same underrepresented and underserved demographic groups in STEM are the ones that have been most impacted by COVID-19. We see this very clearly in enrollment data. And these data here were published by the National Student Research Clearinghouse just a couple weeks ago, actually a few days after we published our white paper. We've known for several months now, though, that enrollment in public two-year colleges has decreased significantly compared to previous years. And while this is true across all demographic groups, students of color have been impacted even more severely than their white peers. Native American students saw the steepest decline of any racial or ethnic group, decreasing 13% among undergraduates overall, and falling almost 20% among community college undergraduates. Latinx students experienced the largest swing out of any demographic group, going from an increase of 1.7% year over year pre-pandemic to a decrease of 13.7%. And of course, with this audience, I know that you're all very well aware of the diversity of students that two-year colleges serve, not just in terms of racial and ethnic diversity, but in terms of life experience, work experience, educational background, economic status, and most relevant to this discussion, in terms of how academically prepared they are to tackle collegiate level math and science courses. This challenge, unfortunately, is likely to become even more complex and far-reaching as a result of learning loss during COVID-19. According to research conducted by RAND, 2/3 of K-12 teachers have reported that they covered half or less of the material they planned to when school was still being held in person. And during remote learning, school districts have reported decreased engagement, decreased attendance, and lower grades among high school students. Alarmingly, research by McKinsey showed that Black and Hispanic students were twice as likely as white students to have no access to any live teachers in the fall of 2020, indicating that these issues of learning loss and lack of preparation for college are going to be exacerbated as a result of the pandemic. Over the next few years, college freshmen will likely need even more support than before to be successful in their college-level math and science courses. Now, more than ever, the opportunity and the challenge that the two-year institution faces is to meet the needs of students from a wide variety of backgrounds and experiences. In other words, finding ways to meet students where they are. Fortunately, there are tools available to help two-year college math and science teachers tackle this very problem, and they come in the form of adaptive learning technologies. And for this paper, we focused on McGraw-Hill's Assessment and Learning in Knowledge Spaces, which is better known by the acronym ALEKS. ALEKS is an online learning platform for math and chemistry courses that was developed at the University of California by cognitive scientists, software engineers, mathematicians, and educators. It's rooted in 21 years of research and analytics, and ALEKS uses machine learning and knowledge space theory to assess each student's baseline knowledge, and then create an individual dynamic path to learning and mastering topics. One of the great features of ALEKS is that it only presents students with topics that it has assessed they are ready to learn. 94% of the time, students are able to work through and complete those topics. In our interviews with educators for this paper, we heard that this feature has helped students overcome anxiety and be more likely to persist and succeed in their math and chemistry courses. Our interviewees consistently called ALEKS an equalizer in their courses. And impressively, a case study from Columbus State Community College found that the co-requisite college algebra course closed a 12-point achievement gap between Black and African American students and their white peers through the use of ALEKS. But rather than hearing about ALEKS from me, we thought that it would be a much better experience for you all to hear directly from ALEKS users. And so now at this point, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I am going to introduce you all to Dr. Eric Moffitt, who is an instructor of biology and chemistry at Pearl River College, as well as Lorna Duran, who is a biochemistry student at Hunter College. So thank you guys so much for being here. We are so excited to have you. I want to remind everybody that we do have the Q&A section of the program coming up. So please, I have some questions that I'm going to ask Eric and Lorna, but as you all have your own questions, please feel free to drop those into the chat as well. So Eric, Lorna, really the first question I have for you both is just to tell us, what was your experience like with using ALEKS? Eric, if we could start with you.
Sure. Thank you, Abby. Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here, just to be able to share a little bit with you all. Also, you asked about my initial experience with using ALEKS. I have to say that my initial experience with using ALEKS, I was just blown away. I was looking for something at the time that could better serve my students and be better utilized in my classroom. I needed students to do more guided practice outside of class. And I read about ALEKS, and I was so sold on ALEKS and everything that it offered that my colleagues trusted me to make the decision on our adopting of a new learning system. And I decided to go all in without even piloting it. So I really put myself out there, but I had that much confidence in what it could do for my students. And I'm really glad that I made the decision that I did. And so over the semesters, you all know that the needs in my classroom have changed dramatically. Starting last year, where we had to go fully online, and then we had to go into a blended format, and now we're going back face to face. But regardless of the changes that I have seen each semester, as far as the needs of my courses, ALEKS has been able to slide in and accommodate those needs seamlessly. So it doesn't really matter, what the needs of my courses are. ALEKS works perfectly. So, and students are still satisfied with it. I'm gonna be honest, my initial implementation of ALEKS, I wanted to do everything all at one time. And it was a little challenging, as with anything when you change something. But as I learned how to better implement it and use it for my students, it became a great tool. So now I have a partnership. I like to think of it, a partnership with ALEKS. I really couldn't imagine my class without it. I can't imagine getting through last year without it even. And so I hope I began to answer your question a little bit there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Eric. Lorna, being a student using ALEKS, can you just tell us about your experience?
Well, my initial experience was interesting because I had never in my life heard of ALEKS. And I think that just coming into class, it was my first year. I was so nervous. I had come from being homeschooled into like actual school. I was not used to a classroom setting. So everything was so new, and so was ALEKS. And my teacher introduced it on the first day of class. It was 15% of my grade. And at first I was super duper nervous. I didn't know how it worked. And I think that the initial knowledge check was a bit nerve-wracking for me because I'm like, oh my God, what if I fail all these topics? Like, what if I have to start from zero? So that was my initial reaction. But my experience with it with time became so positive, and I changed so much of my life, and I changed my whole major because of ALEKS. Like, I absolutely loved chemistry, fell in love with it through ALEKS, and now I'm a biochemistry major. So that's my experience.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Lorna. And let me ask you a follow-up question as well. You know, was there anything that your professor did that made your introduction or use of ALEKS easier?
So for me personally, coming into school, I had high hopes for myself. My goal was to have a 4.0 for all of my first year. And to me in the moment that seemed impossible, but whatever. With time, I was just trying super hard to do well in everything that was assigned to me. And when my teacher introduced ALEKS as 15% of my grade, I'm like, this is something that's going to be so stressful and something that I'm going to have to worry so much about in order to get that A. But my professor one day, she explained it and she was just like, this is your personal tutor. And this is not something that you have to worry about or stress about. This is just you sit down judgment free, whether you fill a topic 5, 10, 15 times, as long as you complete it, that A will be yours. And that was something that was comforting for me because ALEKS was the one thing, up to now, the one thing in my entire college career that I've done solely for learning and not for a grade. And I think that's so important because in college, everything is so grade driven. I want an A, I want an A, whether I learn or not, I want an A. And ALEKS just showed me to slow down, judgment free, and just be able to learn at my pace and still know that I could achieve a good grade. So it changed a lot. And my professor just introducing it as my personal tutor allowed me to not be as intimidated by it because I'm not like, this is a homework, 15% of my grade, that's it. She was like, no, this is going to help you and this will help you get high marks on all of your grade of exams. And it'll help you actually retain the material for future courses.
Thank you so much, Lorna. Eric, I want to turn back to you for a second. You know, you talked to us
Sure.
a little bit about your sort of initial reactions to ALEKS and how you started implementing it. How has that changed over time? Can you tell us a little bit more about that and how you're using it right now?
Sure. Like I said, when I first went looking for a new system to implement, learning system to implement in our class, I needed something that was a little bit more than just homework. Uh, as I said, I needed guided practice. So I realized that when I was lecturing, I would lecture and then I would tell students, take these problems, I'll give you answer keys, but I want you to work these problems outside of class to reinforce what we talked about today. And no surprise to anybody here, found that many of my students just weren't doing that. They would tell me, we didn't do the practice sets. And so I needed it to them to be driven to do something, but also that while they were working and really making the majority of the connections on the material that they would make in the class is when they're working and practicing, that they were also guided at the same time. So that's why I needed it to be more than just homework. Because I wanted to be able to continue to guide them as they're making connections. So initially, I just use ALEKS. The good thing about ALEKS is you can use it straight out of the box, however you need to use it. So I needed something a little bit more on the adaptive side, and I didn't need the non-adaptive, which you can implement it that way if you need to. So I just put it out there, adaptive problems, and just to see how it would work, get a trial run. And I could see immediately the benefits of what ALEKS could have to offer. But I needed to really spend time focusing on fundamental topics, fundamental concepts that I really wanted my students to gain, especially as they move through the progression of chemistry courses from Gen Chem 1 to 2 to organic and so on and so forth. There are many different concepts that are extremely important for them to actually master as they move from one course to the other. And then COVID happened. So post-pandemic, all of a sudden, I don't get face-to-face time with them anymore. So we don't even have the face-to-face lecture time that I have with them to present concepts and ideas. And so, I'm panicking, and my colleagues as well. We're all panicking across the entire department. What are we going to do? And I had been using ALEKS for a couple semesters, and I knew that ALEKS had the ability for me to be able to implement different things that I had not before. So ALEKS had me covered, but I just had to implement things that I hadn't before, such as instructor resources and things like that. But by doing that and evolving how I implemented ALEKS, it allowed me to cover that change. Where students actually they would tell me, I still felt like I learned something. Matter of fact, that summer when I taught a course, student said, ALEKS is the best way to learn chemistry. And you'd be surprised, you think when an instructor has to take a whole course and put it online in a matter of weeks, that it would still be somewhat effective, and it was. Students were still learning and still enjoying the course. So I think that's amazing.
Thank you so much, Eric. I have one more question for you before we turn it over to the larger Q&A. And that is, really, I think the heart of this topic comes down to, again, meeting students where they are, being able to be that equalizer, and particularly for some of our underrepresented and underserved groups of students. So in your experience, how can ALEKS address issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the 2-year math and science setting?
That's a good question. That's something I didn't really think a lot about until recently, actually. And just like you already mentioned, especially at the 2-year college level, there's a huge amount of diversity that we see as instructors in our classroom. Beyond just racial and ethnic diversity, we see, diversity. And I have some students that works 40 hours a week, and some students that just hang around on campus, not working at all. Some students that are non-traditional students, first generation college students. I mean, the amount of diversity in my classrooms is humongous. And I think the innate design, the way that ALEKS inherently works, really accommodates the equity part of that. ALEKS works from an equitable standpoint and not a standpoint of equality. But what I mean when I say that is, before, when I would assign 15 questions to all of my students, that's assigning 15 questions that every single student gets. They answer the 15 questions, and they go to the next assignment, regardless of where they are in their understanding, regardless of how prepared they were when they came into that course, regardless of what they even got out of it. But ALEKS works from a different standpoint. It's going to present, like you said, students with what they're ready to learn, and then they're going to keep working on it until they learn it. So some students may, need 5 hours to learn a set of topics, while other students can do it in 1. But ALEKS allows every student to, at the end of the day, at the end of the course, be on the same page, to master the same number of topics, because it really provides that individualized learning path. So I think inherently ALEKS does a good job of covering that diversity, equity, and even the inclusion, because of all of the data that it gathers on your students and their learning. I may not be able to monitor everything about my students and how they're progressing, but ALEKS will let me know when students are falling behind. And just this semester, ALEKS let me know about a student that was falling behind in their learning. And I reached out, and it turned out that they were going through isolation, depression, and I was able to quickly connect that student to a counselor. And she came back and said, "Look, thanks so much. You really saved this semester for me." But I would have had no idea that student was in need, because the student shut herself off, and I didn't see them face to face. So that's all I have there.
Thank you so much, Eric. We appreciate you sharing that. And Lorna, thank you as well. At this point, I want to turn it over actually to one of my STEMconnector colleagues, Jack, who will help us with the Q&A session. I want to also, again, just encourage everybody, drop your questions into the chat, whether they're for me, for Eric, for Lorna. We also have some folks from the ALEKS team here to answer any questions you have as well about the program. I also want to just really quickly encourage everyone to download the paper. If any of this has really resonated with you and you're interested, it's available on our website. It's available through McGraw Hill. So just want to, again, encourage you all to check that out as well. Jack, I will turn it over now to you.
Thank you, Abby. Hello, I'm Jack Goki, and I'm the membership growth leader here at STEMconnector. That was an amazing overview, Abby, Lorna, and Eric. Thank you. Really fascinating what's happening with ALEKS, and really love hearing about the 2-year college, how it's playing out for students, and how we're closing the gaps. So let's get started with our Q&A session. For about 20 minutes, we have slotted for this, maybe about 15 minutes at this point, and then we'll break for about 10 minutes and then come back. So I will try to keep us on time and move through this. Please use the chat function to submit your questions, and we'll try to answer every question, and we'll get started right away. So Eric, you were talking about one success that you had with a student One question that's come up is, what other success stories specifically with students can you point to where the ALEKS platform has made a big difference in your ability to engage with the student? Any other examples you want to point to?
Oh, absolutely. I can think of two right off the top of my head. One particular example is students. ALEKS really facilitates the building and strengthening of connections with your students because it gives you a reason, it gives you something to talk about. Off the top of my head, as I give my ALEKS work, students may be struggling with something or miss something repeatedly. And it's due to an underlying misconception that they have, something fundamental, but it could be something that didn't really stick when I was talking about it in lecture. So they'll come to my office and I can pull up their work and see exactly what they did on every single attempt. It's really nice. And we can look at it together. So we're sitting there together, even though this whole post-pandemic world doesn't really, facilitate that. We have a reason to come together and to talk about their work. They see that I care. They see that I can clearly track what they're doing, and I can point out, this is what you did wrong right here, and it'll solve the problems, and that really makes students happy. Another quick point, a line of feedback that I got just this semester from my students is I had a feedback comment that said a whole bunch of us in this course, it was a Chemistry 2 course, were extremely afraid of this class. We're not very strong students in mathematics. And chemistry, we're just a little skeptical. But ALEKS made this doable for us. So we came in saying we hate chemistry. We're not excited about taking chemistry, but we left really excited about this class. So I think that it does a lot just for this whole idea of the positive students going into STEM majors.
Okay, thank you, Eric. That sounds like some really great use cases going on there. And there's a few different questions we're getting, so let's jump to those.
Okay.
Can ALEK be purchased by a school for use in a tutoring center? I'm not sure.
Is that for me?
I think that might be directed to the ALEKS team. So the question again is can a school can be purchased by a school for use in a tutoring center?
Hey, I'll jump in here. Noah Evans from the ALEKS team. Yes, absolutely. So the way that ALEKS works is that you purchase access to duration for students. So if that's something that a tutoring center wishes to purchase on behalf of students, that cost can certainly be passed on that way, as opposed to a traditional model where Eric's students, for instance, are purchasing access to ALEKS. So I'll take a note of who asked that question. It looks like it was Ann Coleman. And we can follow up with more details for you, Ann, but the short answer is yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next question is, I noticed that ALEKS has a number of offerings in Spanish. Do you have any feedback for students using those products specifically? Also, is there any way that this product can be used in a universal format, but not language specific?
I can jump in here. I'm Carolyn Solano on the product side of ALEKS. So right now in-house, we have math instructors that are native Spanish speakers who translate every topic in ALEKS, as well as all of the language in the platform, so that we can have that toggle. And every time we add new content to ALEKS or new features, Spanish translation is included. Students really have come to value that because we don't want language to be a barrier to math or chemistry. Our international team is working on, and is specifically focused on the Latin America region, on localizing some of the translation and the content so that it's, so that the currency reflects those countries. Beyond that, we don't have a toggle for other languages because we rely on in-house staff rather than a Google Translate. And if that doesn't answer your question, please feel free to ask a follow-up in the chat, but hopefully that answered it.
Okay. One question for Eric also is how does ALEKS compare to other adaptive learning services, compared to Pearson or other services that are like that? Any thoughts on that, Eric?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I see your question, Torrance. Thank you for it. You said I've used Pearson, who has some adaptive learning program. Okay. I think that the answer to your question is in the question itself. I came from Pearson as well. And that last sentence, I'm reading it. I've used Pearson, who has some adaptive learning program capabilities. When I think of ALEKS and the adaptiveness of ALEKS, that adaptive learning is a new trigger word that all these publishers are throwing out now because it's a hot topic. The adaptiveness of ALEKS, the adaptive learning component, is so embedded into ALEKS that there's no button to turn it on. It's just a part of ALEKS itself. Now with Pearson, when you get to the very end of assignment creation, there's a button that says, would you like to enable the adaptive learning setting? So it almost seems to me like an afterthought. Oh, we need to add this because this is where everything is going now. So we need to get on this, on this train. I hate to say it like that. It sounds ugly, but I think that if you're looking for something truly adaptive to address the things that we've talked about today, you need to go with a system that is established and very good at the adaptive part of it. And that would be ALEKS. Out of everything I've looked at, ALEKS is the only thing that has the adaptive learning truly built into it and not some add-on, that was added on after the fact.
Jack, if you don't mind, I've used Pearson for chemistry as well. So I think I have like the student perspective on this. I used Pearson for the second part of general chemistry, and it was night and day completely. My attempts on Pearson were graded. So if I got a question wrong once, my grade was diminished. ALEKS does not do that. So as a student coming to ALEKS and Pearson, putting them side by side, one is so much more intimidating, and one just does not create a healthy environment for learning because you're constantly being graded on everything. If you put a number more than you should have, a significant figure more than you should have, you've lost a quarter of a point. And to me, that just did not create a healthy environment for learning. I was scared every time that I opened it. I'm like, oh my God, here I go. I'm gonna lose points. While ALEKS, I could open at 3 a.m. if I felt like. And if I did well, I did well. And if I didn't, I didn't. So it's completely different environments, personally, for me as a student. So I just wanted to add that student perspective there.
That's a great addition, Lorna. What, going on with that idea, what advice do you have for educators who are implementing ALEKS into their classes? Any thoughts in terms of the implementation process in the early stage in terms of engaging students, etc.?
Yes, sir. So I'll try to summarize this to 3 things. Number 1, I'd say reach out for help. I had a ton of help from all of the staff at McGraw Hill. They really do a good job of creating tiers for support for you. You've got so many lines of support that you can reach out to, and every one of them will reach out and get your problem solved. Even now, I'm still reaching out for help. Just yesterday, I sent an email, done, response sent back to me. Number 2, I'd say less is more. Don't try to assign all these topics at once. Start to build them. You know your students, and I know my students, and your students are not going to be the same, have the same needs as my students. So just pick out things that are fundamental, and build from there. Don't try to assign too much, because remember, ALEKS being adaptive, when you assign a topic, it could take one student 3 hours to master it, or another student 30 minutes to master it. And regarding engagement, you really have to build ALEKS into your course to promote student buy-in. That first week, I actually set aside a whole day, ALEKS. look, bring your laptops this Friday. We're going to sit down. We're going to go through ALEKS. I'm going to make sure everybody has their initial knowledge check done. We're going to practice navigating it. I'm going to show you how to go through it, to review if you want to review, to, to whatever. It's just ALEKS day. And, I show them data from previous cohorts of classes. Look at this data. The students that got through their ALEKS, look at the grade they got in the course. I show them those significant correlations and let them come to their own conclusions. But you have to really show that you're invested in it for students to be invested in it as well. And so I continually remind them throughout the semester, don't give up on ALEKS. If you want to succeed, ALEKS is your #1 best shot at success in this class. So,
Okay. We have a question from a teacher of calculus-based physics for freshmen. And as they begin their academic careers with math preparation, their preparation varies drastically. And this teacher is considering using ALEKS for self-guided preparation. What is the best way to motivate students to actually use the system?
Lorna, do you think you could maybe provide a perspective here? You seem like a motivated, self-guided learner.
Oh, I don't know. I was under the impression that ALEKS didn't have physics, but personally, I just think that the best thing always is just reminding them how non-intimidating this is, and it's essential. It'll help you learn, but making mistakes is okay. I feel like a lot of times students shy away from homework assignments and shy away from things because they know they won't do well. That's something that I've experienced this semester. I'm at a new school. I'm taking all these higher level courses, and sometimes I have assignments I just don't know how to start. So I'll just procrastinate until I can't do them anymore, And I think that fear comes from failure, the fear of failure. But when you come to ALEKS and you understand that even if you don't know where to start, ALEKS will tell you exactly what to do. It'll guide you through every step of it. Reminding students of that just takes away the fear, and it takes away this thought in your head of, I really don't want to do this because I'm scared of not knowing and I'm scared of doing badly. There's no doing badly in ALEKS. Like, the only way you can do badly in ALEKS is by not doing it. As long as you're there and you're engaged and you're answering and you're making mistakes just normal, ALEKS will work for you and you will do well. So I think it's important to just remind them of that. And just as professors, was something that my professor did. One of my favorite professors to this day was just introduced it as a tutor. And that's what has remained for me all these years after. So I think it's important to just introduce it as a tutor, as the most non-intimidating thing you'll do in this entire course.
Right. If I can add to, Jack, can I add to that?
Please. Oh yeah, please.
Very briefly. Okay, thank you. And Ben, it also hit on what I was going to say. You need to make it a significant part of the grade as well. Or, if it's a small percentage, students will weigh the time investment versus the payoff. And if they feel like it's not worth the time investment, they won't take the time to work through the ALEKS. But if you make it a significant portion of the grade and ensure, look, everything they need to learn these topics is there. ALEKS has very well-written explanations. They don't get penalized if they miss it. They just have to try again. And you tell them, when you get that check mark, you're going to have a good idea of what you're doing. And I think that works for a lot of students, especially students taking calculus-based physics course. That's some practice they need. They need that practice on how to think through problems and learn how to work in a self-guided way. So it really benefits them all around.
Thank you for that. Our next question is, using ALEKS for placement different than using it for coursework?
I can speak to that. So yes, they're two different products. We have a placement product, which will work with you to define sort of which scores students need to enter each class. So the adaptive assessment will span the entire math curriculum. And based on the courses that you deliver at your institution, we'll recommend a class that students are ready for. We'll also give them the opportunity to level up. So after students take their first placement assessment, they have a year of learning and study modules where they can brush up on some skills that they may have forgotten. And then we'll give them the opportunity to take another assessment up to 5 times. And what we find is that if students spend between 4 and 6 hours in the study modules on the placement product, they will advance 1 course, which will save them tuition. They'll also be better prepared for those courses. And so that is what our placement product does. And it's across a fixed set of topics. Our course products are available in math and chemistry. They span from developmental math through pre-calculus, or we have intro chemistry, GOB, and general chemistry currently available in ALEKS. And that's where you select the topics you want students to learn, you select the structure and pacing, and you decide how much homework and other assessment to include. And if you have any more questions, feel free to post those in the chat.
Great. Well, we're going to move to our break in just a moment. I'm going to ask one more question and then we'll break. Eric, do you still give out homework assignments, or do you create practice problems in conjunction with ALEKS, or is it do you stay out of that? How do you manage that?
Okay, thank you. That's part of the evolution of how I implement ALEKS now in my course. Used to be purely adaptive, and now I give a small mix of non-adaptive. So I will give my weekly adaptive objective assignment due Sunday nights, a certain number of topics, always less than 10 for me. And then also throughout the week, I give small review quizzes that review the previous week's topics. And it's always very short, 3 to 5 questions. They have multiple attempts, and it's just to keep them, refreshed and honest about the work. So I do give non-adaptive assignments in conjunction with the adaptive assignments. And Jack, I hope I don't get too much trouble. I did see a question here from Eleanor, and I just dealt with this yesterday. Do you mind if I address it here while I throw us off? Okay. Eleanor asked about, can student results be tied to performance competencies? Yes, I mean, the way that I use it. So we have to track student learning outcomes, of course, and turn those in, for SACs at the end of the semester. Why come up with your own SLO objectives and come up with your own assessment, which I minored in statistics. So how do we really know that assessment that we create is a valid assessment, especially if there are only 2 or 3 items, per competency. So ALEKS tracks this for you. So I just print out a nice little report at the end of the semester and aggregate that data and turn that into my department chair. She loves it. So it serves that purpose for me very well, tracking student learning from beginning to end. And I think it's data I could trust more so than from an assessment, a 20-question assessment I make at the end of the semester.
Okay. Well, with that, thank you for answering some of the questions. There were more questions that we had time for, so I'm going to take a step out and say that we'll put those questions together and get back to everybody after today's session at some point, probably early next week. So I hope that's okay to say that, and that we can do that, because I know there's a lot of great questions asked, but we've run out of time. So we need to take a break. I know that everyone needs one, so we'll break for about 6-7 minutes here, and then we'll get started again at 2 o'clock. So if you just want to step away, get some coffee, some water, or whatever it is you need to do, and we'll join back up here in about 6-7 minutes. Okay, thank you. I hope you had a great break, and we're now going to head into one of the best parts of the day, our breakout sessions, where we'll have each the opportunity to take what we've heard in the previous segments today and explore how we might apply it in our day-to-day professional lives. You might also use this time to explore some of the related ideas that have been percolating in the back of your minds, or bring up other questions or thoughts that you've had during our Q&A session as well. We can talk about those in the breakouts as well, if anything comes up related to those questions. Each breakout group has been assigned a facilitator, and they will have been provided with a list of questions to guide the conversation. But I want to encourage you to take the conversations where they need to go within the parameters of the session topic. I would also like to ask everyone to turn on their video during the breakout sessions, as that will be just a lot more conducive to engagement with each other, and we can see each other and have better dialogue. Once we are redirected to our breakout sessions, you will have about 25 minutes for the discussion. We'll come back together as a full group, and then one representative from each breakout group will report out on your discussion. So you will see that there's a 5-minute timer towards the end of each breakout. So please plan to spend those remaining few minutes getting your thoughts together into your summary for the report out at the end of the breakout sessions. There are 6 breakout groups, and in just a minute, you'll be automatically redirected to the session. We hope you enjoy the sessions, and we'll bring together everyone at the end again. If you have any questions in between, feel free to use the chat function. We'll try to monitor that and get back to you. So without further ado, you'll automatically be placed into your breakout group in just a moment. So enjoy, and we'll talk to you afterwards.
Instruction well and identified who that person is. So first, I'm going to go to group 1. Edna Davis, Lowe, would you be willing to report out for group 1?
Yes, I can do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So in our group, we talked about a number of things, but there were some things that resonated. And one was how students starting from different places and their response to ALEKS end up in the same place in terms of seeing the progress that they make and the role that the educator has in supporting that. We also talked about what Lorna shared about her experience and being influenced through ALEKS to become a biochemistry major supports what we know from the research, and that is how critical the sense of belonging and the development of a STEM identity are in helping students, first of all, envision STEM pathways, but also persist on those pathways. And we see through Lorna's example, and I'm sure many others, the way that ALEKS can be a support in helping students gain that sense of belonging, that they belong in that math class or they belong in that chemistry class, and they can be successful and build the confidence and the competence to go on. And then the last thing was about helping the students really develop a growth mindset. You know, wherever they start in their response or their thinking around their ability to be successful, that this adaptive technology has shown the potential to help students realize and recognize the progress that they are making and see something more than they may have seen when they entered that course. And I would invite anyone else to add in the things that I did not capture.
I think you captured it all, unless anybody from the group has anything else to add.
Group 1, you are going to be a tough act to follow. That was fantastic. It sounds like you had a really good conversation in your breakout.
We did. It was fun.
That's awesome. That's so great. So group number 2, I understand you nominated Noah from McGraw-Hill to represent your group.
Yeah, and so I get to follow that tough act indeed. Edna, that was great. Thank you. And Cassie, I agree. Quite philosophical in group one. I like it. I like it. So in group two, we had a great discussion as well, and really it started with sort of level setting again on really how the ALEKS platform itself works. We learned that Brian, one of our attendees who joined a little bit late and was trying to get up to speed on a few things, is really taking the ALEKS approach in his own manual way. So for his introductory biochemistry students, he has a diagnostic that he has created that he gives them on the first day to understand if they have the necessary levels of preparedness and prerequisite skill that he sort of hopes or expects they have in the course, and then tries to anticipate and measure roadblocks or things that they might get hung up on as they go through their learning. And so he said, I'm very excited to learn that it sounds like you have an algorithm that does this for me. So we talked just a little bit more again about the process of students working through a course in ALEKS, where they do have that initial diagnostic that gives them credit for what they already know. And then they start working through a personalized learning path, which from there, we sort of explored a little bit more, and really it stemmed from Lorna's comments about how she felt much more comfortable and low stakes jumping into a system like ALEKS at 3 a.m., because of the non-punitive nature of just learning, not being graded or punished or, given the right, wrong type of feedback, but more so, did you learn it? Regardless of the amount of struggle that it may have taken for a student to learn some of these topics in math and chemistry. And so we just sort of re-examined some of that stuff. And then there were some great questions. Peter brought some questions. Carla brought some questions about, the level of insight that you have. They were really intrigued about what Eric shared on knowing every single interaction that a student has within the platform, and really through the lens of like, how can I jump in and help? How can I see a simple mistake that students are making just once or twice and then know, oh, I know how to help this student, and being able to intervene and sort of course correct them. So they enjoyed hearing about how that's been a benefit to Eric and how he handles that process, and also just knowing the level of insight that you get on what students are doing in ALEKS and how that benefits you as the instructor, so that you can keep them moving nice and steady down the straight and narrow, as it were. So I think that's kind of the gist of it. The last thing, I mean, we talked a lot about how Carla had some experience with ALEKS years and years and years ago, and her school still uses ALEKS in placement. And we were talking about some, the various implementation models and the way that you would set up ALEKS for a lab-based course versus a lecture-based course. And Abby was in my group too, so she was able to share, while she hasn't used ALEKS, she's talked to many instructors as part of the research process who have, and we talked about, the intentions of explaining the process and how adaptive learning may differ from traditional homework, but also messaging to students what benefit that provides to you. So not just getting hung up on the work per se, but focusing on the process and what that will result with in the end of retention and mastery of this content. So I heard it put this way once, and I'll leave you guys with this. An Arizona State University instructor who we've worked with for a long time told us that moving his classes to ALEKS was like going from one class of 100 to 100 classes of 1. It's that true individualized, unique approach that you then get to connect with each learner of your class. So thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Noah. Emily, would you like to tee up breakout room number 3 and let us know who's going to
so
share?
we had a pretty diverse group. We had 2 sociologists, a geologist, and a dean. So we went a little off script. But one of the things we talked about was how, if you take a group of middle schoolers and you ask them like what they want to be when they grow up, a lot of them are going to gravitate toward those STEM careers, because at that point in their instruction, it's fun. It's, they feel they have a lot of confidence, especially in areas like science. As you get into high school, that number drops off because students realize like how much math is involved, right? So we were just kind of talking about that concept and the importance of developing students' confidence. But I think I'll turn it over to Roy. He had some insights and some really good observations about kind of just the possibility of having like a personal tutor. So Roy, do you want to kind of share your takeaway?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things, in the College of Arts and Sciences, where we have engineering, actually, I see a lot of students really get hung up and lose their momentum. And so having a tool or in some ways, someone said, or in the introduction, a personal tutor, I think could be very, very helpful. And what was really good that came out of the discussion was that ALEKS allows students to gain some confidence. And earlier commenter said about a sense of belonging, because I do think that a lot of students feel that they don't belong. And so in that way, if we can build that confidence, give them tools, and probably most importantly, give them, provide them the learning and not just the grade to move on, to be successful. I think that's really, really powerful. I think another thing that came out was, can ALEKS be able to accommodate word problems? And I think that was addressed insofar as, if I understand it correctly, and I'm pretty new to the whole thing, is that the program allows you to break things down in a very granular fashion. And so in that way, you are able to build on those concepts, those building blocks. And I think too, someone just mentioned, I think it was Noah, said that faculty can actually use the results or the diagnostics from ALEKS to help them with their teaching. And I think that would be a really good feedback into how not just students can use the program and use the benefits of artificial intelligence, but also too how faculty can use it, because then that's sort of real-time data and feedback for their own pedagogy.
Fantastic. Thank you, Roy. So my group was group 4. We had a lot of, it was basically a bunch of McGraw Hill people in one room. So Torrance pretty much got his own demo. So Torrance, do you mind if I put you on the spot to share what you said about student motivation and reaction to Lorna's comments, and then any observations you had?
Sure. I always preference everything I say by just stating that I'm a very new teacher. So like I've been in research for about 15, 16 years, and I felt the calling to go into teaching. So that's why I'm at a university. So I haven't sat in a classroom myself since 2004. So now it was kind of like interesting to try to see it from a student's perspective. Like, and my old school mentality, I have to change it into the new school. So kind of like these tutoring type programs. So so I'm learning too, which is another reason why I'm here to learn a lot of this. But I've noticed that when like early on in courses, especially in the general biology course, it goes into an aspect of chemistry that's the basis of the whole course. So I always feel like I'm being pushed through, like I have to move at a particular speed. And I feel like I want students to really hit that part harder. So I was really, and I wanted something that the students could do and it helps them like at their level. So that's kind of why ALEK is really interesting to me, how it keeps, like if they are, if they're struggling a little bit, it keeps asking them questions to see how well they know the information. And that's really the most important thing. And it gives them the confidence. I see so many students after like 1 or 2 lectures are like, man, I don't know any of this, I'm out. And it's like, once they're out, it's hard to get them back. So I want them to be in from the beginning and be motivated and excited about what they're learning, which is what Lorna was kind of talking about, which is what got me excited. Was she was like, this is a cool program, this is neat, and I want students to be excited about it and not scared of it. So that's kind of like why I'm here asking all the questions that I'm asking and trying to like, how is this a better way to implement? Like I've used the McGraw Hill Connect programs. I like those in some of my courses. And I am using Clutch Prep right now, which is a video-based program, but it doesn't like change based on the responses. It just says, it just gives you more information, like if you answer something wrong. So I don't know if that's what you guys are looking for, but that's what I'm looking for.
Very much so. Thank you so much for letting me put you on the spot. And I think, you know, when we thought about bringing this group together, it's all perspectives that we wanted to hear from. And both, you know, you being new to teaching, you offer a really valuable perspective, as well as those who have been teaching for a while. So thank you very much for letting me put you on the spot and for participating in our group. Megan, would you like to either represent group 5 or?
Yep, I'm on it.
To share? Thank you.
Yeah, my group was a little shy in the big group, but we had a good conversation in our small group. So they were really drawn to this event because it's such a big focus for them right now to figure out this post-COVID world. And not only from a perspective of filling those learning gaps, but also smaller things like getting students back into the classroom and motivating them to actually attend and raise their hands again and get back into the swing of things. So we had a good conversation about that. And also just, we had a great chat about how ALEKS can help them sort of lift that heavy burden of fixing everything at once. So we had a conversation about, in the paper, towards the end, there's a cool page where we talk about how different instructors who are currently using ALEKS, how they're implementing it in a really short, quick little bite-size piece. So I definitely recommend looking at that if you came here to kind of hear about instructors and what they're doing in their courses. So we talked about that. And then right before we left, Felipe said, number one thing is to protect student confidence. We talked a lot about that and how students come into these STEM courses with low confidence. You know, math is so hard, can be so hard. So anything that can help them raise their confidence and get into these careers is a great thing. So in summary.
Thank you, Megan. And then Marissa, will you please remind me who will be representing group number 6?
Eleanor is going to represent us, so I'll let her go ahead and take that away.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. We had a range of topics that we covered, sort of leapfrogging from one place to another. One of the sort of first of all, there was a positive response to ALEKS for those of us who had not previously been familiar with it, and those who use it also felt positively about it. So that was a nice tone, I think, that was set. From a global perspective, the idea that the data that supports the idea of using this kind of technology with traditionally underserved populations and assisting them in their journey into higher education, and in higher education is critically important at this point. And certainly the ALEKS work supports that, and that they will that in turn supports the idea of what the concept of this group was about, which is the pathways, the underpinnings. How do you actually go from talking about it to putting it into reality, and being given tools like ALEKS in order to accomplish that, especially when the AI, in terms of its functionality and adaptability, is, far surpasses what we've had before. So this is really kind of a frontier area with a major breakthrough. My concept, my 2 cents on that. Let's see, just trying to take a look here. Some people did talk about using it for placement for their students, and that led to a kind of universal reaction to how helpful ALEKS is in relation to the wide range of students. Everybody, there was a unanimous, oh yeah, to the idea that we're all dealing with such a wide range coming in for multiple reasons, but no matter what setting you're in or who you are, you seem to be dealing with that. And again, there was a very positive sense of ALEKS being a great solution to not just addressing the problem, but the fact that it has a feedback loop of the type that it does built into the system. It surpasses the idea of, oh, you got this right or you got this wrong, but it gives you the information and helps guide you through your learning process. So again, when you're looking at that range of learners, that's a great attribute. And did I skip? Well, we did talk a bit about the realities of, the post-COVID world and what everyone, both students and teachers, have been through and are continuing to go through with just coping with all of the multiple realities that's brought into our lives. I feel very fortunate because I'm off developing curriculum for a program right now, but my son is a teacher, and just like hearing people and knowing what it really is like in the classroom or not in the classroom. And yet, Barbara, with all that's on her plate, she was in our group, commented on the fact, but I will still bring this to my colleagues. Like, she recognizes the value here and is motivated to share what she's learned today. So I think that's it.
Eleanor, you closed us out wonderfully. Thank you so much. And then I get the honor of wrapping up this great event and discussion. And, our goals were to bring together educators, administrators, leaders, and employers, who really wanted to learn more about and talk more about and continue a conversation around, preparing and creating a more diverse STEM workforce, and what are the, solutions and pathways forward to that. And I think, and I just want to thank Abbey Myers and the folks at STEMconnector. Abbey worked really, really hard and tirelessly on pulling together all of the research. She did a ton of interviews with folks like Eric and Lorna. You'll see the many contributors that she really worked closely with. And we certainly, as is the McGraw-Hill way, kept her on a very tight deadline, because we knew how important this information is and really wanted to share it with everyone who has semesters ending very, very soon. So Abbey, you're an absolute rock star. Thank you so much for your hard work and dedication and partnership. STEMconnector has been a great partnership all the way through, even in developing this event. And as I mentioned earlier on, we really had a goal of having this conversation, but it's so important that we want to continue the conversation and invite all of you to join us in a LinkedIn community so we can continue these good discussions, ask other questions, Our whole team and the STEMconnector team will be joining that group as well. So we hope to have further conversation there. We're so encouraged and excited about the enthusiasm around ALEKS, and we'd like to offer anyone who would like a further demo of the platform. We're going to put up Megan's contact information very soon, and we'll certainly share this group, in the group. You can certainly request that as well. So we'd love to share more with you about ALEKS and answer any questions you have there for sure. But this was a great event and discussion. And thank you all very, very much for taking time out of your day to attend and for your participation right up until the end. So I hope everyone has a great rest of their day and a lovely weekend. And thank you all for the time and attention and great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.